Assalamu alaikum viewers, I'm Ijaz Akram, welcome to Discourse. The subject of today's discussion is social classes and social mobility in Pakistan. Several scholars of the contemporary world have argued that the new social classes from the capitalist era onwards are distinct compared to the social classes that existed throughout history. Karl Marx saw social classes at war with each other. Weber talked about life chances determining what we will do in our life that are also linked with social classes. And Tom Baltimore also propounded his study of elites and how elites will always rule a certain collectivity. To discuss this topic in the context of Pakistan, as usual, we have two distinguished guests with us. Towards my right, we have Dr. Muhammad Hafiz, who is the director of Institute of Social and Cultural Studies in Punjab University. Welcome, Dr. Hafiz.
Thank you.
And towards my left, we have Dr. Nadeem Umar Tarar, who is an associate professor of Department of Communications and Cultural Studies at the National College of Arts. Welcome, Dr. Tarar. We'll begin with you, Dr. Hafiz. Describe the concept of social classes and its significance to a lay audience, and what is this whole tension between the social classes that we see in the contemporary period?
Well, historically speaking, social stratification and classification has been a universal phenomenon. It existed throughout human history. It exists now, and it will probably exist in future as well. Classification, classes, groups with distinctions, with different characteristics, they have been in conflict with each other, they have been cooperating with each other, and through this relationship among groups or classes of people, war, conflict, creation, it has emerged. Growth, development in software, in hardware, in material development, I think there is a great contribution of classes, because there had been a struggle among classes to beat other classes, to defeat other classes, to get a relative advantage over other classes. So this phenomena of classes, social classes, economic classes, political classes, all sorts of classes, it has existed throughout human life. It is overly significant phenomena. Sometimes among or between classes there is a struggle for survival. When there is a struggle for survival, then people do all sorts of things because it's a survival issue. War is a form of conflict among classes, among nations, among people, among groups. When there is a war, for war, actually it is a war for survival. When people look for survival, they find all sorts of things. It makes groups and individuals focus on something.
So you do subscribe to then the Marxian view of social classes that somehow tension with each other, as opposed to Weberian one, which is a little bit more nuanced than that?
Well, both. Because that also exists. Both phenomena exist. It's a conflict. Conflict has its own negative and positive consequences. It creates, it generates new ideas.
Right.
Intercourse of ideas creates new ideas. So that conflict is positive in that sense. But at the same time, it hurts, it kills, it destroys. That is negative consequence.
So this is the predicament of human existence, so to speak. And like you said, that it has been around from earlier times. But we want to discuss with Dr. Murd how in the modern period this whole notion of social classes became even more pernicious, in a sense. The same things that Dr. Hafiz pointed out, which is that there is this friction that has come about. I do remember, if I can go back as my great-grandfather, he had maybe 1 or 2 horses, and his servant also had a donkey or a mule. Today I may have several cars, and the guys who might be working for me don't even have a bicycle. So if the modern world takes pride in being equalitarian and egalitarian and so forth, it is even a lost dream. And the historical classes were somehow not at war with each other as what we are in this rat race of materialism, in which there is this friction come about that Dr. Hafiz pointed out. What would be your response to that?
I would say, I think the conflict was probably more pervasive. I mean, over centuries, the nature of stratification between individuals and group have probably softened up. For instance, we don't have slaves anymore, where, there is a class of individual where the master has virtually complete control over their destiny. We have marginalized groups. We have subservient classes, but we don't have slaves.
The slavery that exists in child trafficking in Russia, and also women going from Sri Lanka, Bangladesh to the Middle East is indentured servitude.
Yeah, of course, but that is not approved. That's not socially approved. Exactly. That is not legally approved. That is something that people do, in a way, in a through back doors. They can't really endorse it. So in that sense, yes, human race, if you like, has progressed in some ways. But the other end that you pointed out is capitalism. Capitalism is very vicious because it's the engine to produce maximum profit.
Right.
So in order to produce maximum profit, that means that it has to have it has to accumulate in certain pockets with certain groups, and unless it accumulates, it's not able to invest. So this economic stratification that we see today is the direct product of capitalism, and that is why both Max Weber and Karl Marx, they are the ones who are, they're the ones who are the early critics of capitalism. Weber, as you said, through his life chances theory, treats, this class struggle in a more approving, in a more positive manner, where Karl Marx sees completely negatively as the, the exploitative side of the class struggle.
Yes.
So whereas Max Weber would see how these stratification that has come about, through capitalism can actually open up new opportunities for a whole lot of people. Whereas Karl Marx would say that it is actually, at the end of the day, the control remains limited to fewer hands.
Because of the access to the means of production.
Because of the access to the means of production.
And so Marx is saying that we have here a class which is a capitalist class, which has actually come about from the nascent bourgeoisie, and bourgeoisie was that class that were called, the word bourgeois comes from burghers, the people who went from one borough to another borough. These burghers, who were actually profit seekers, were under the thumb of Christianity for a very long time, and it was only after the implosion of some room in Christian morality that that allowed for profit seeking, and hence there's this new breed that has come about whose monstrous face we see today, and who is not only impacting social classes but also environment. And the disaster that we saw in the Gulf of Mexico since last week is also due to the greed of this class. And there is this, quite rightly pointed out, that there is this class that has come about which is indeed a very greedy class. Now, when we come back from the break, I would like to transpose this discussion of social classes onto Pakistan and see that what kind of social classes we have and what are the normative concerns when we approach the subject of social class, whether from the point of view of being westernized people or from Islamic orientation, but just after a short break.